Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do geometric wainscoting in your home. We're going to be going from this to this. First up, here's what we're going to need to do this project. You're going to need some PVA or wood glue, MDF strips or a sheet of MDF that you can cut down, Alex Fast Dry or some sort of DAP caulking, a sanding sponge or sanding block, spackling, Bin's shellac primer, a quality paint, and I used a paint sprayer, although I don't know that that made much of a difference in the end. So you can totally use a brush and a roller. And I used a electric brad nailer, but you could also just use a hammer and nails if you don't have that. I've got links to some of these items in the description below if you want to use what I used. Once you've gone all the way around the room, you should have something which looks like this. First, we need to cut some strips from our sheet of MDF. I'm using a track saw, which makes this really easy, but you could use a table saw or a skill saw with some sort of jig or guide. If you don't have a way to cut these yourself, you can always buy them pre-cut, though it is more expensive. I cut the entire sheet down so that I'd have plenty of strips to work with, but you can cut them one at a time or as needed. We're going to start by building a border around the room. This part is really easy, and you can start by positioning one piece in the corner with glue on the back side. I'm going to use my brad nailer to attach this to the wall. This acts as kind of a clamp while the glue dries, but it really does make a difference. If you just put it there with the glue, these pieces will fall down. We work our way around the wall, and we cut the strips where we need to using a miter saw or a hand saw to fill in the smaller gaps. Once you've gone all the way around the room, you should have something which looks like this. Now comes the fun part. This is where this project really starts to come together. I didn't plan out any pattern. I decided to do this completely randomly. So I just took a strip and cut an opposite 45-degree angle on each end. That means the angles do not point the same way. And I put it up against the wall. With some glue on the back side, I then nailed it into place. Even though the angles are 45 degrees, I still used my square throughout this process to make sure that the strips were at 45 degrees to the frame that we made earlier. I then cut some more strips and continued to work my way across the wall, adding strips wherever I felt like. As I said, I did this completely randomly, but you could definitely plan it out if you had something specific in mind. Eventually, I decided I was finished, and I was left with this. I was starting to feel great about the project as it was really starting to look awesome. Next, we need to prep the material for paint. You need to start with spackling, filling in any holes and gaps on the strips. This means nail holes and all the areas where the strips meet. Once they've been filled in, they should be left to dry, and then sanded. I did an additional coat of spackling and a second sanding application in areas that required it. Then I used my caulking to run a bead of caulk along all of the strips, connecting the strips to the wall. I wish I were better at caulking as there were some areas that needed some cleanup afterwards. Be sure to do any sort of cleanup while the caulking is still wet. It's a lot easier to clean up at that point than after it's dried. Once it was all dry, I applied primer to the entire wall. MDF is great for painting on its face, but the edges have a tendency to absorb paint, which doesn't look great. I used Bin's shellac oil-based primer to give everything a coat before applying any color. This really seals it in and makes it take the color much more evenly and smoothly. Once this is done, it's ready for paint. I'm not going to actually show the painting here because, well, everyone knows how to paint, but I also used a paint gun to do this, and I didn't want to have my camera in there while I was spraying. We used Evergreen Fog, which is Sherwin Williams Color of the Year. I wish I could have shown you this because the paint gun was really cool to use, but I would say I don't know that I would use the paint gun again. It made a big mess, even with everything plasticed off, and I don't think the finish was any better than it would have been had I just used a paintbrush and a roller. We did use Sherwin Williams Emerald paint, which produced a really nice hard finish. It's washable and it's much higher quality than the paint which came with our house. So I think that did produce a good result. After the paint dried, this is what we're left with, and I couldn't be happier. We got a really, really fantastic result, and it really changed the look and feel of this space. Have you done a similar project to this, or do you have questions about this project? Let me know in the comments below and tell me what you think. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe and like this video.